Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today I want to talk about the only topic which I haven't addressed yet in my YouTube channel over the 100 or so, 200 videos that I have. And this topic, I'm sure you've been dying to know the answer of this, but it is mental miscarriage. So, mental miscarriage, what does it mean? First and foremost, it means that your manifestation has failed, that it has derailed, that it is aborted, that it is essentially the same thing that happens when a woman miscarries, right? And for a childbirth. And so this question comes up a lot, and it's mainly just because we really want our manifestations. We want the things that we want, and we do not want to be imagining and continuously thinking that we're going to receive this big grand thing if it's really not coming. And so I want to go in and alleviate your concerns, but also give you some things to look out for and kind of some tips as to where you can steer yourself to prevent yourself from having a mental miscarriage. So that's what this is about. But first, like the video, it does something so that others will be able to see this information, which is priceless. Hit the subscribe button for broken down, systematic, methodological information and step-by-step instructions as to how to manifest anything that you want, point blank, period. So into it now. Mental miscarriage. What does it mean? Mental miscarriage essentially is when you kind of overload your mind with negativity when you're trying to manifest something, and therefore something happens and you know it uproots your seed. In order to understand it a little bit better, I want to go into how manifestation works. I'll break it down into pieces so that you can understand it and you can kind of get what I'm talking about here. So, and really generally speaking, as it relates to mainstream manifestation, which is close but not quite there as far as accuracy is concerned, the idea is that we are vibrationally attracting something, and therefore if we match the vibration of the thing from which we wish to manifest in our life, and if we maintain that, then we will draw it in. This, although it appears that this is the truth, because there's some of the techniques that we use would be misconstrued that this is the truth. What this is actually doing is leading more toward, in a lot of cases, it's leaning more towards the road of mental miscarriage, and I'll explain why. You see, the way that manifestation actually unfolds is that in a way that is incomprehensible to the human mind. Either that or we have never, science has never figured it out yet. When, and I think that it never will, is when we visualize, what we're actually doing is impressing something upon the subconscious mind. Now, through systematic testing, you can prove that we are all essentially connected by the subconscious mind. And so basically what that means is that when we are all in essence influencing each other, some are influencing each other more due to them claiming their power and exercising their visualizations and imagination, and others are more or less directed by those who are actively utilizing their imagination. But when we visualize something, it is as if we are planting a seed of the likeness of the DNA of that visualization or imaginal act which we have just done. So let me break that down a little bit more. When we visualize, we are essentially in the mind creating a seed. The seed is of the replica of the thing that we visualize. So an analog to this would be a tree, right? And in scripture, in biblical scripture, it really is continuously referenced, or the analog is generally a tree or fruit or a seed. And so you take a tree like an apple tree, the seed of that tree will grow in the ground and it will manifest to be another apple tree, right? This is reality though. I'm not talking about anything spiritual or manifestation. The tree, or even a man and a wife, right? His man and a wife, when they conceive, a baby comes out and it is also of the likeness of those two parents. And so in that same way, the mind is very much like a womb and the impregnator. So basically what this means is whatever we visualize, the conception in this physical reality will be of the likeness of the thing visualized. Now, it's not only visualization that I'm talking about here. Anything that gets into our awareness via means of the subconscious mind will be expressed outward. So if you use inner conversation and self-talk on a regular basis, as everybody does as a matter of fact, you are consistently impressing upon the subconscious mind those words, those statements, those feelings that you are consistently playing in your mind day after day. So essentially, before we knew how to manifest, we were a slave due to our automatic thoughts, right? Unknowing that we were creating our reality due to our imagination, we were consistently, accidentally impressing our subconscious mind. We are always, there is never a time we are not manifesting. And so where does a mental miscarriage come into play here? Well, when we plant that seed, when we imagine, when we create that imaginal act, whether it be visualization, through self-talk, which is known as mental diet or inner conversation, through using subconscious mind tapes or anything else of that like, that seed is then planted. But that seed, what is contained within that seed is actually all of the events that must transpire in order for you to become the person that you've just imagined. So in other words, if I imagine to be a billionaire and I really truly impress that upon my subconscious mind and I imagine that I am already that person, right? That's a key prerequisite there, that it's after the end result, right? Because we're planting a seed in the likeness of our desire. And therefore, if we want it to grow to our full desire, such as a billionaire or being married to a specific person, well, then you want to imagine only after the end. Just a little bit more clarification on that now that it kind of popped into my head. You can plant different end results, but they will not be related to each other. What I mean by that is this. If you imagine the middle and then imagine something later on and imagine something later on, these seeds can plant one after another. And so another example of this would be if I imagine being married to a specific person and then I imagine kissing that person, right? So I'm imagining the middle seed will manifest external, but it will not have anything to do with that end result. And so oftentimes people do things like this. They go on dates or they get a text message or they sleep with someone, and really this seed is manifesting, but it has nothing to do with this one. So you always want to go after the end result, right? That's just a little help for you. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. If during that bridge of incidents, right? So I imagine being married to someone, I imagine being a billionaire. We'll take that as a very simple topic. Now, a series of events has to unfold in order for me to become that billionaire. The good news is that if I've planted that seed properly, then I must become that person. I must fill that role eventually. Now, it doesn't have to happen this instant and very likely won't, because the way that our bridge of incidents is formed is due to our assumptions, beliefs, self-talk, imaginal acts, etc. So that's the key aspect that has to do with our mental miscarriage here, which we're kind of alluding to in the end, is that I will become that person. However, if I have a lot of negative beliefs inside of me, then the way from which that manifestation is going to come will be in a way based on my beliefs and ideas, because the only world that I'm experiencing is crafted by me, which means I am the one that has a say in how this stuff is going to unfold, which means if I have a negative set of self-beliefs or beliefs about the world, then that is going to be the way from which my manifestation comes. However, with that said, if I consistently and continuously have a flood and obsession of negative thoughts, during the time in the middle where this bridge of incidents is unfolding, I will be consistently planting seeds that are consistent or of the DNA of those self-talk, that imaginal act, that fear, that doubt, that insecurity. And so continuously flood the imagination or the mind with this negativity, then you may very well get yourself a mental miscarriage, right? Which means essentially that all of those things in the middle can destroy that seed that was planted in solid ground, right? So another way that a mental miscarriage, I'm gonna give you a silver lining at the end of this, by the way, so make sure you stay with this, but the other way to have a quote unquote mental miscarriage is essentially after you have imagined, meaning directly after you visualize or use your inner conversation, you immediately are preceded with a flood of obsessive negative thoughts, or even having any real negative thoughts after this imaginal act. So there's a couple things here that you should avoid then. Don't imagine when you're feeling terrible. Don't continuously try to correct these negative thoughts inside your mind. Wait until you feel okay. Wait until you are sailing in calm seas before you go ahead and imagine again, right? Or visualize again, or use that inner talk again. If you are in a bad mood while you are visualizing or using your self-talk, then that sum total of those emotions, self-talk, visualizations will be compressed into that seed, which means that also if you're in a terrible mood, if you're insecure, if you're in fear while you're visualizing, right? If you're trying to visualize to escape the fear that you're feeling, then you'll be dragging in those other emotions with you, right? Because the sum total of your consciousness will be compressed within that seed and carbon copied outward on the screen of space. And that's kind of the culmination of what I'm saying here. So, in slight conclusion, there is potential to destroy your manifestations, but there are ways to resolve this, right? There are ways to get over this, and there's ways to still manifest your desire, and this is how you have to do it, right? But just before, I have to tell you this, there has been one time for me, only one singular time from which I have destroyed a manifestation, and I could tell that there was a mental miscarriage. All things exist within the awareness or in the consciousness. And in this case, in my life, I was in a very negative, obsessive flood of insecure thoughts in my mind. And so these insecure thoughts, these obsessions, I would wake up and feel so kind of depressed and helpless because I really wanted my desire, but I had no control over my mind. It was this case and this case alone that I've experienced my mental miscarriage. I felt a literal drop within my consciousness. Like literally it felt like something dropped within me, and I knew at that point my manifestation was kaput. However, consider this. I have been manifesting for about 9 years, almost 10 years now, and that was only one time that's ever happened. My mental status at that time was awful, and in fact for many years I've had a very terrible mind, meaning when I say terrible mind, I mean a depressed mind, insecure mind, an obsessive mind. At one point back in the day I was diagnosed with OCD. That's how obsessive my mind was. I had to check myself into a psych ward because of the capacity of my mind. So luckily I've been able to manifest myself out of those over the past years, but out of those situations and out of those obsessive thoughts. However, it still goes without saying that that type of mindset, if I didn't really have any mental miscarriages with that status or style of mind, with those obsessive thoughts, then needless to say, you shouldn't worry so much about it. However, if you continuously have a flood of insecure, fearful, doubtful thoughts, you should take a look at what you're after, right? And this is just from a friend to a friend. This is what I would say to the people who said it to me. I thank so much for this, but I have to look at what it is I'm after and why I'm doing it. If I'm using something or someone to fill a void in my life, then that's a serious problem that I have to look at. Now, for many years, I had been after women or even drugs. And it was never just to have that drug or that woman or that feeling. It was to fill a void within my soul, right? So there was something wrong inside of me. I was very codependent, and I had issues that were unresolved when I was a child and a teenager that I never took care of, including loss and trauma and things like that. And that obsessive, insecure thoughts had to do with all of those things. My self-confidence and my security was at 1% out of 100, you know? And so take a look at what you're after and why you're after it, because these things will continuously crush manifestation after manifestation if they're unresolved. The good news is that the only thing you have to do to fix anything is manifest, which means I went through a process and I had a workshop on revision, and doing that, I actually was able to completely resolve a ton of my issues overnight, which means years and decades of trauma in my life were basically resolved, or to larger or less degrees resolved within a day or two. And so definitely check out my videos on revision, and check out my videos on assumptions, lost art of assumption, and there's other videos as it relates to beliefs, right? Because beliefs are the key here. These thoughts that are obsessive should not be combated. There's an issue behind the scene, a seed that is planted somewhere that is continuously producing those negative thoughts. So your goal is to manifest yourself in a position where you have overcome those issues. So the last and final thing that I want to say is that you can still always get what you want, regardless if you've if you've miscarried your manifestation or not. You can still just imagine it again and get it. However, if you don't treat the causes and conditions which caused the miscarriage in the first place, then it will happen again and again. So manifestation is a journey. It's something that over the last 9 years I realized, although it is the fastest, quickest way to obtain anything in any ways in this world, there's still work to be done on myself. I myself was a very injured, lost cause at first, right? But eventually, by using and testing manifestation in a very systematic and deliberate way, I was able to overcome these flaws, and now I'm a person who stands before you today who's very confident, very secure, very successful, and that's a far cry from the addicted, sick, sad, depressed, negative person that I was. So anyway, I hope this was helpful to you. Definitely hit the like button and subscribe for more information like this if you want all these manifestation techniques broken down. So thank you so much.